Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hello, my name is Becky Brown and welcome to Life Recovery Today. Today, my guest is Corey Busk from New Day Treatment Center, and we are going to talk about holidays, family, and recovery. It's a great mix, and I think that you will learn something from today's show. But first, let's start with, there's a reading in the Life Recovery Bible, and it's on honesty. And sometimes in family, honesty can be a really good thing, but it can also be tough. We start with the psalm that's, just says, "Oh, what joy for those whose disobedience is forgiven, whose sin is put out of sight." You know, honesty, living that life of absolute honesty is that freedom, knowing that you are forgiven, that you're not keeping anything secret. But, living a lie is miserable. We may know from personal experience the heavy burden of trying to hide a secret life. And if we're avoiding God and withdrawing from people because we fear being found out, we're living in reckless agony. Moses understood the price one must pay for trying to live a lie. He prayed, "We wither beneath your anger. We are overwhelmed by your fury. You spread out our sins before you and our secret sins, and you see them all." He was just overwhelmed, not understanding that God loved them. He did see all of that. And I think that's really the goal of being an honest person and living an honest life. That life of surrender, the life of confession. Why should we live with the weight of dishonesty when relief is available by God? God already knows your secret sins anyway, so why continue to suffer needlessly? I think that's a great way to start a new year and to accept the freedom that Christ has for us in through our recovery. Well, when we get back, we're going to talk more to Corey about family and recovery. We'll be right back.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back. I'm Becky Brown, and I am joined by Corey Busk, who is the communications director at New Day Treatment Center.
Yeah.
Corey, what kind of things do you guys treat at New Day?
So mostly substance, but we do some mental health counseling and other things for outpatient. But our main is anything substance recovery and treatment for inpatient.
Great. I love it. And I know that you guys have a solid faith base throughout all the work that you do, and it's a really great thing. Corey and I were talking about the fact that the holidays are upon us, and addiction and recovery and family and holidays, that's just a mighty mix. And so I was wondering, so Corey, I know your story. You've been in recovery for a while, and I asked you before, but I'd like for you to share with the audience, what was life like for you the first time back in the holidays as a sober person working recovery?
Sure. Well, I mean, so as I was telling you, family, very messy. And so there's a lot of feelings that go into it, as you know. But whenever I went back in, the first thing that was really hard for me to do was to tell my family I was in recovery, because my grandmother didn't know, folks didn't know where I was. I was just kind of gone for treatment and whatnot. So coming back in, they're used to me, coming in, being the life of the party, fun, all those things. And so my biggest worry was that I would get there and that I'd be boring, which I mean, but that was the first one, which is kind of surface level.
Right.
But then two, you get there and you realize, oh, that aunt or uncle just walked in, and there are some feelings that kind of stir inside of you that you didn't even know were there. So,
And so as a result of letting your family know, I'm in recovery, I don't drink anymore, what was their response?
Well, super proud, which regardless if they are or not, you're like, oh, thank you.
Which is always a surprising response to me, because if they're drinking and they're proud that you're not drinking, that's always curious.
They're like, cheers to you.
Yeah, exactly,
oh,
exactly, right.
But yeah, no, they whatever you need, let us know. But their job is just to be family, right? They're not necessarily my accountability, the support for that. So the main people I relied on were my recovery group folks, my support team, especially accountability people who, they'll call you up and they'll go, did you drink or did you not? And you're like, I didn't. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are those those are like your sponsors or?
Yep.
So as a person is working their recovery, they have this support team around them, and some are sponsors, some are group members. But you had mentioned, as you're going into those situations, you're making contact with them.
For sure.
And then they're also holding you accountable by asking you those difficult questions.
Yeah, for sure.
And how does that result, what happens as a result of that for you?
Well, so whenever I first went to my first family function, and I was the only one who, wasn't partaking in alcohol, I felt actually kind of lonely because I'm the only one. I don't know if people understand, what that exactly means to be in recovery. And so just to have people, I remember before going in saying, hey, going into this family's messy, just be on standby. Be on text, be on a call. You might, which seems like a big ask, because they're with their families, right? They're doing things with their families. But one thing, as you know, people in recovery, they're like, I'm here. Whatever you need, I got you. So
I love that so much about the community. It is true in the recovery community, there is a language and there is a connection that is so authentic because we know what the struggles are like. Even if we don't have the exact same struggles, we understand how hard it can be in relationship. Corey, as people are heading into this holiday season, and maybe this is their first time home after, getting sober, working some recovery, what would you suggest to them would be some steps to kind of prepare for those messy family situations? Yeah,
I think one of the first is obviously to have your support team right there with you, even via virtual and phone. But two, you have to know how you're feeling going in. So one thing that I like to do going in now is thinking about who's going to be there, who's going to be present, how do I feel, have we made an amends, have we not? They may not even know that they did this thing when I was 15 years old. And so, who's going to be there, who's not, how am I going to feel? Do I have the control to leave, or did I ride with someone? I think that's also important. What's your plan? But so some of those things of just kind of forecasting, or if you feel, I don't think I can do it, you probably shouldn't go. And that's okay too.
I think that's such a powerful permission because when we talk about what is it that we need on working our side of the street, it could be, I need to drive. I need to be able to leave if I need to. And I think there are situations in families that the role is kind of cemented years ago, whether you've had an addiction or not. And even some of those situations can be tough. So all of the things that you just suggested were really powerful. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the most fascinating conversations I had with someone in my family. I told them I was in recovery, and they said, you know what? I actually went to treatment 20 years ago. And I thought,
wow.
I just thought you just didn't drink, you know?
Wow.
And so we got to really bond over this honest thing and kind of compare stories, but also talk. And then, so it was just cool because I didn't know that part of my family, of that member.
Right,
So
I love that.
yeah.
You know, there are traditions with holidays, and we were talking also about the tradition of New Year's Eve, because everyone knows that New Year's Eve is the drinking celebration. And if you have been in the situation where, you know, you don't even remember New Year's Eve, and you're facing your first one sober, you may think, it's going to be boring. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Sure.
And you may even have an episode of depression or, you know, so what are some suggestions or what have you done in these years in sobriety to deal with that?
Yeah, anything that I am invited to, well, let me reverse. I actually just started having my own because there's no use in me going out to an event venue or to a friend's house that I know for sure, especially the group that I used to celebrate with.
Right.
And just say, you know what, how about everyone come over? We're probably not going to, you know, get that type of state of mind, you know, but so I would just invite people over, or just if people do invite you, just ask questions.
Right.
It is like you said, permission to ask any questions or not go that you know.
That's
that
right.
You want. So
because you know we talk about in recovery when everything changes, right? So you're changing everything, and so there's going to be this ripple effect, which is good. It's going to end in a life of serenity and peace. And so those first couple of times that it's a different thing, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's just like the first time you go to a group. You know, I mean, I do not want to go to group. I do not have nothing with those people, which always makes me laugh. And then you find a community that is so powerful and so strong. And I would say if you're looking into this holiday season, or if you've already been enduring some of this, one of your first steps could be to get to a group. And just, you know, step in there and find that connection, find that support as you're going through these holidays. There's a lot of old wounds that kind of get kicked up with the holidays too. And usually our substance of choice is going to be our remedy. But what we found in recovery is that we have other tools that we can use. You know, I know that you guys work with so many different situations, but I think families really are involved with addiction and recovery on every level. What are some of the things that you, when you think about recovery and family, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that?
Oh gosh. Well, I obviously trust with family and recovery, because a lot of times we felt that, you know, we've let our families down time and time again. And so assumptions of how your family feels, that also can be unhealthy, of like what you're assuming they're thinking. So, but you know, having those healthy conversations, but also I think I may have mentioned like the amends piece. And how someone may not even know that they did anything to you. But it is important. You were saying honesty earlier, but holding all that stuff in, I mean, that's what really, it really just stirs up, and it builds and it builds and it builds.
And I think a lot of times family structures, if you have someone that has hurt you and you have not been able to talk to them about that, you also have to do your own work of forgiveness. You know, but that amends piece is pretty powerful if you're the one that's been the offender as well. And it's just, you know, recovery gives us really great guardrails and steps, literally, to walk through our life and find that freedom so that we can be in community, we can be in family, even if our family doesn't ever change. After this break, we'll be back and we'll talk a little bit more about the challenge of holidays and family in recovery.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis, someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Welcome back. Talking to Corey Busk, and we're talking about families, holiday, recovery, all the things that are really on our minds right now in this season. Corey, there's another part of the holiday season that is pretty powerful in our life. It's the traditions that we have. I mentioned in the last segment about, the tradition of New Year's Eve is a drinking holiday.
Sure.
But even in our practices, I have known loved ones who will leave a family event to go to a meeting because they need to. That's just their routine, and they're in another location, like they're not home, they've traveled.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the need to go to meetings in the middle of the traditional, this is just what we do as a family?
Sure. I would say the most important thing about the holiday and your recovery is your recovery. And so traditions, at New Day, we talk about no sacred cows. Like there is nothing that we can't change. And so if your new tradition might be, you go to a meeting, and maybe even bring your family. Which is okay to do.
Don't go meddling now.
Right. right. Or maybe your family goes to their own type of meeting somewhere else. So, but that anything can change. We make cookies at 3:00, but I have a 3:00 meeting.
Right.
Okay. Well, could you make cookies at 2?
Right.
Or 4:30?
Right.
Or can you change it? It doesn't have to be the same. And I think that's sometimes it can make us sad.
Yes.
You may have to miss out on making the cookies at 3:00.
Right.
But you know what? You can always create a new tradition, and it's what's healthiest for you in recovery, not the tradition.
Right.
So.
I love that idea because it's the flexibility. As we are working recovery, we don't work recovery to be rigid. And I think that's a misnomer many times, is that we think, we've got to keep all these rules. Yeah, there are definite rules and there are definite things that you want to do, but it evolves into a life of freedom.
Yeah. And
so that you have the freedom to say, can we make cookies at 2?
Yeah.
And you don't even have to go into the whole explanation of why. And I think that early on in your recovery, you can feel very threatened or defensive about your new choices because it's so much easier just to do, or it seems to be easier to do what everybody else is doing. But that's kind of what got you in the mess in the first place, right? So, as we look at the traditions, and also if you're working recovery and you're on your own, maybe the family, obviously you've got your community of recovery, but maybe the family is like, you're messing up with the family rules. This is not what we do. It can feel lonely. So I love that you identified, recognize you feel sad, but what do you do when you're sad or you're lonely? Sure.
Well, and I wanted to speak on whenever you do set up kind of new boundaries or you make sure that you need to go to your meeting, it feels selfish. And the hard part about recovery is that when you're in addiction, it is selfishness, but very unhealthy.
Yeah.
When you're in recovery, it is selfishness, but it's healthy.
Yes.
It is a healthy version of this thing. And so that's what, you feel bad. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, what do I do? And then we isolate.
Right.
And so I'd say, I don't remember your original question.
Well, but it's how to disrupt those traditions that you feel bad, you feel sad. So what do you do when you're feeling sad or you're feeling bad?
Yeah. Well, and most of the time, I would hope if you're in recovery, you've got some sort of a coping skill that you can enact. Like mine is painting, and so whenever I feel bad, I'll go, hold please, and then I'll kind of retreat and not just isolate and sit in that feeling of oh my gosh, my family's going to be so mad because I messed up the cookies. But rather, you know what? Before I ask them, let me just paint something out. Let me just do this and then kind of get my head clear and then kind of process through how I'm feeling, and then we'll take the next step, whatever the right next step is.
Well, and speaking of cookies, there's a lot of folks that have food addiction and food struggles, and holidays and food all go together. Yeah. And so it could be, okay, what does that look like when I go to the big feast, and how do I manage my eating when I'm in that kind of climate, that culture. And that's where that strength of recovery can come into play. You know, one of the things that Steve has always said about food challenges is that you own the food on your plate. So you can decide how much you're going to eat, how much you're going to put on there. You're going to get invited from your family members, oh, you should have another, second helping. But remember, in your recovery, there are going to be things that you need to put boundaries around for your self-care, for that selfishness that you're talking about as well.
Well, and the same thing goes for people who struggle with money.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and buying, just a multitude of things.
That's right. Yeah, that there's never enough gifts, and so your Amazon cart is full to the brim, and come January the bills are through the roof, and then you have that regret. And recovery is all about connection. And about about finding that freedom to live that life in a way that is the best for you. Yeah. Because I think what happens so many times when we're struggling with addiction, it is the overwhelming compulsion to do something that you really aren't wanting to do. And I think about how many people began a journey of addiction unwillingly, unknowingly.
Right.
That they're invited into it because they simply didn't understand what their needs and their wants were. Yeah. And I love that about recovery, is that we have an opportunity to really know more about ourselves. So, Corey, when we think about just the many different things that can complicate holidays, in our recovery, we want to enjoy our holidays. What is the best thing that you have experienced in your recovery about the holidays? And you mentioned having your own gatherings, which I think would probably be one of those things, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I would say that. I would also say, just like we were talking about those new traditions of going back to, your triggers.
Yes.
You know what they're going to be. And so if I'm having my own gathering, I have the control to, okay, I'm not going to do that thing that used to trigger me, or invite that person, or do that thing. And so creating something brand new. So maybe not, making something at 2:00. Well, okay, well maybe let's sing Christmas carols. I don't know, or we're going to watch a movie that, I used to love this movie as a kid. And so now everyone who's coming to my house at 5:00,
right
after the meeting,
right,
we're going to watch this movie.
Right. I love that so much. And I think incorporating a new way of life, a new version of you, because that is, that's the before and after stories. I love them so much. And I think, even when you think about one of the classic movies is A Christmas Carol.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, learning about those different, Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future. You have the ability to change Christmas present and future through your recovery, and accepting the fact that there's going to be change, there's going to be feelings that don't always go with what, is easy. Yeah. But we have a community of people who can help us through that, who see us, and who can really walk alongside of us. I tell you, the recovery community is one of my favorite groups of people.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
I mean, they just see you, they understand it, and they also accept the fact that we're all struggling with something.
Right.
Corey, as we kind of wrap things up today, what would your Christmas wish, your New Year wish be? You said something earlier today about 2022 is coming, and people are always like, oh, this year it's going to be so different.
Sure. Yeah, the New Year's resolutions that I also made 1,000 times, but 5 days in, I give right in. But the thing that I would love for folks to have just a mantra of is that the old is gone and the new has come. And there is nothing more solidifying than that new calendar year, and just remembering that, even though it's hard and the old comes knocking sometimes, the old is gone, the new has come, and I don't ever have to be like I was, and I don't need ever again if I don't want to be. And I get to be a part of that choice of, you know what? The old will never come back.
That's right.
Which I love.
I do too, and the freedom that you can have in that. There's a saying of stop living to pay off the debt, and I think a lot of times in addiction we think we're living to pay off a debt, and in recovery we find that debt has been paid. Yeah. And that we can live this new life, and it can be better than ever before.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much, Corey, for being with us today. And I know that we have encouraged somebody as they are going through this holiday season. We'll be back in just a minute.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back. It's been a great conversation between Corey and I about preparing for holidays, recovery, and the family. You know, one of the things about the holiday, Christmas, is joy. We are celebrating the gift of the Savior. Jesus changed everything for all of us, and it is such a great gift. And you know, I think about in the steps, in the practice of the steps, you know, we can experience more and more joy as we learn about that freedom that is ours. And I'm thinking about the joy in God's presence. And in step 11, it says, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Most of us need to desire something before we will wholeheartedly seek after it. You know, we won't begin recovery until we're to the bottom, till we're absolutely done with using, whatever the use is. Until we realize how much God loves us and cares about us in the details of our lives, we probably won't have the desire to pray to Him. Until we sincerely believe that He has completely forgiven us, we will be ashamed to face Him. If we hold to our misconceptions about God, this step will be a formidable chore rather than a joy. I want you to know that God loves you to the very core. There is no pit that is deeper than the love of God. He is deeper still. And you can go to Him in that constant contact each and every day. It will be the foundation to everything in your recovery. I'm reminded of the serenity prayer, you know, to accept the things that I cannot change, the wisdom to know the difference, you know, and as we're making those changes, our wisdom comes from God, and the way that we can do that is through our constant contact. And so maybe, we were talking about New Year's resolutions earlier, maybe your New Year's resolution is each day I'm going to work step 11. I'm going to improve my contact with God each and every day, to work out His will, to know His will, and to experience the joy that the gift of Christ has given us in this season. It works, doesn't matter if it's Christmas or not, but it's a great way to live life. I hope that you will be encouraged today by this talk of recovery and joy, and I want that for you each and every day. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.